What do you get when the fastest man on Earth decides to play football? Tokyo 1964. He torches the track and takes home Olympic gold. 1 year later, he's leaving NFL defenders in the dust. This is Bob "Bullet" Hayes, the only human to ever win an Olympic gold medal and a Super Bowl ring. His speed was so unreal it broke the game. Literally. Before Hayes, defensive coordinators rarely played zone coverage. He didn't just outrun the competition, he outran history. Let's talk about the man who changed both track and football forever. In a time before star athletes trolled each other on social media over who was faster, a boy named Bob Hayes was born on Jacksonville's East Side in 1942, into a segregated world with no sidewalks on its streets. He grew up in a Gullah Geechee community where children literally walked in the middle of the road to school. Sports offered escape. At Matthew W. Gilbert High School, Hayes was the backup halfback on the 1958 football team. That year, the Gilbert Panthers went 12-0 and beat Fort Lauderdale's Dillard High 14-7, becoming the first all-black high school to win a Florida state championship. During Jim Crow, their achievement went basically unnoticed, until 50 years later, when they were recognized as one of the best high school teams in Florida history. Even then, Hayes was barely a starter, and under the standard ground and pound playing style of that era, his blazing speed was not used properly on the field. But off the gridiron, Hayes began to make a name in track. Locals would recall the scrawny teenager running like the wind. In fact, in high school track meets, he won so consistently that legend says he never lost a 100-meter race. That raw talent earned him a scholarship to Florida A&M, an HBCU powerhouse. At FAMU, Hayes excelled at both football and track. As a wingback, he shared the backfield with future legends, but it was on the track where he became a force of nature. Hayes tied the world record for the 100-yard dash at 9.2 seconds, then broke it with a blazing 9.1, an all-time mark that stood for over a decade. By 1964, Hayes was legitimately considered the world's fastest human. The Tokyo Olympics were his big stage. In the 100-meter final, Hayes ran from lane 1, which had been damaged by a previous event. He also wore borrowed spikes. One shoe was missing before the race, but none of it mattered. Hayes blasted down the track in 10.06 seconds, tying the world record and winning gold by nearly 4 meters. But the real magic happened in the 4x100-meter relay. The U.S. team was behind when Hayes got the baton. What followed was almost supernatural. Hayes made up 9 meters on the final leg and crossed the finish line in what was clocked as an 8.6-second split, one of the fastest relay legs ever recorded. The U.S. team set a new world record of 39.06 seconds, and Hayes had captured another gold. Before the race, a French anchor, Jocelyn Delacour, famously joked to USA runner Paul Drayton, "You can't win. All you have is Bob Hayes," to which Drayton replied, "That's all we need." The Tokyo track crowned Bob Hayes the champion sprinter of the world and set him on an irreversible path. At 21, he retired from track forever to play football professionally. The Dallas Cowboys drafted Hayes in 1964 as a future pick even before his college eligibility ended. At the time, many believed that the franchise took a big gamble, as they had doubts about an Olympic sprinter surviving the violent, technical world of the NFL. But Hayes didn't just survive, he took over. The Dallas roster needed a playmaker, and it didn't take long for Hayes to become that guy. His rookie year, he led the NFL in receiving touchdowns with 12, and kept that title the following season with 13 touchdowns. Dallas went from a struggling offense to one of the most explosive in the league. Hayes' presence stretched defenses to their breaking point. In that season, quarterback Don Meredith hit him with a 3-yard pass, and Hayes simply outran the defense 95 yards for a touchdown, igniting Dallas's first ever winning streak. By 1966, Dallas scored 100 more points than the year before, largely thanks to Hayes' blazing contributions. Hayes' arrival forced a strategic revolution. No NFL cornerback in the 60s was used to facing someone who could run under the ball at full throttle. Cowboys teammate Roger Staubach later recalled, "When you're out there throwing to him, at first I thought I was overthrowing him, but instead I ended up underthrowing him. You had to get rid of the ball quickly." Hall of Fame coach Tom Landry admitted that even after drafting Hayes, he didn't really expect to see his speed translate to consistent game-breaking performances. The Hayes-led offense struck fear into defenses. As Pete Gent, a teammate and noted writer, put it, Hayes was the most dangerous weapon in football. and everybody knew it. In Dallas, Hayes either claimed or inspired record after record. In 1966, he caught 9 passes for 246 yards in one game against Washington, a Cowboys single-game receiving mark that stood for over 40 years. By 1970, he had scored 4 touchdowns in a single game against Houston, and 5 times led the Cowboys in receiving yards in a season. In the postseason, he continued his sprint. Against Cleveland in the 1967 playoffs, Hayes returned punts to set a playoff record 141 return yards and hauled in 5 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. That day, he contributed 286 all-purpose yards, one of the greatest postseason performances by any receiver. Hayes also led Dallas in big games. He caught 2 touchdowns in Super Bowl VI in 1972 against the Dolphins, helping the Cowboys to their first ever Lombardi Trophy. In all, 71 of his 371 career catches went for touchdowns, an astonishing average of 1 TD for every 5.1 receptions. He still ranks 3rd on the Cowboys' career touchdown list behind only Emmitt Smith and Tony Dorsett, and is the franchise's top score per catch performer. He made 3 Pro Bowls from 1965 to 1967 and was a 2-time first-team All-Pro in 1966 and 1968. He even led the NFL in punt return yards in 1968. Even after he was traded to San Francisco in 1975, his legacy in Dallas was secure. His uniform number 22 was later worn by legend Emmitt Smith, a fitting tribute to Hayes' blazing legacy. One of the best corners around this time, Hall of Famer Willie Brown explained, "We kind of developed the bump and run even more because of Bob Hayes. We had to hit him. We couldn't just let him get off the line of scrimmage. The game's coverages were altered. Opponents rolled up their safeties into zone packages just to keep tabs on Bullet Bob." In the Cowboys locker room, Hayes' nickname was Speedo. Around the league, a new age of passing offense had risen from Bullet Bob's success. Hayes' resume is unparalleled. He is the only human being in history to win an Olympic gold medal and a Super Bowl ring. He owns Dallas records for punt return titles with 5 straight NFC titles and 4 team punt return crowns. He sits 3rd all-time in Cowboys touchdown catches. He was inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor in 2001 and finally earned his well-deserved place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2009. He was also elected to the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame, recognizing his dual-sport greatness. In Canton, Bob Hayes Jr. said simply,
"Revolutionized the game of football because of his world-class speed as a sprinter. The title is right. He was the world's fastest human."
Hall of Fame cornerbacks and teammates echoed that sentiment. Larry Wilson of the St. Louis Cardinals added that beyond his speed, Hayes had football sense as well. Even 60 years on, sports writers argue his anchor leg remains the fastest relay split ever, and NFL Films ranks Hayes near the top of all-time speedsters. Bob Hayes ran into history. He died in 2002 of kidney failure after battling prostate cancer and liver ailments, far too young. But by then, his legacy was secure. In Texas and Florida, he remains a folk hero. A statue of Bullet Bob now watches over his childhood neighborhood in Jacksonville. Bob Hayes didn't just play in the NFL, he changed it. He's credited as the reason NFL teams developed zone defenses and press coverage. Defensive backs couldn't cover him man-to-man. His speed was so threatening that safeties were moved deeper, changing the structure of defensive schemes. His speed didn't just stretch the field, it bent the rules. Teammates described his motion as melting past defenders. Coaches knew they had to plan for him every snap, even if he didn't get the ball. On offense, every team today needs that deep threat receiver. A new version of Bullet Bob, the Tyreek Hills, DK Metcalfs, Xavier Worthies that play that new role have the gold medalist to thank. Nobody has seen movement like that during his time. His story is more than stats. It's cinematic. A boy from a sun-baked city sprinting out of segregation to become a world champion and an NFL icon. Bullet Bob Hayes showed that speed is itself a weapon. In the end, his legacy is simple but profound. He dared to run faster than anyone thought possible, and in doing so, changed 2 sports forever. This is the Gridiron.